So I'm here in Emden with Tom Edmunds, the writer and director of Dead in a Week or Your Money Back. I love that title, by the way.
Thank you.
Which just had its world premiere here in Emden.
Yeah.
How do you feel right now?
I feel really excited. It's great to share the film with an audience. I definitely intended this film to be a popular film that people would enjoy and could enjoy. So having the chance to put it in front of people for them to enjoy, it was great. And we had a great reception. It was really a terrific audience. They laughed. In one moment during the film, they actually whooped and clapped, which was just fantastic to witness.
Yeah, no, I witnessed it. I've been there, saw that film.
Yeah.
I think the next screening will be at the Edinburgh International Film Festival, which I'm also going to.
Great.
Are you looking forward to it?
Oh, yeah, very much. I've been lucky enough to go to Edinburgh Film Festival a few times as a viewer, as part of the film industry. It's the first time I'll have a film there. And I've always seen really interesting films there. So I'm a huge fan of their programming. And so was absolutely thrilled to be selected. Yeah, this year.
But to all of viewers who are not able to see the film right now, can you just tell you in your own words what it's about? Yeah.
So Dead in a Week is a black comedy about a young man, William, played by Aneurin Barnard, who has tried to commit suicide several times without any success. So he ends up outsourcing his suicide to an aging assassin who's played by Tom Wilkinson. And hilarity ensues, kind of.
And how did you come up with the idea?
So it actually was based on a conversation, really, that I had with one of my producers, Nick, where I was saying to him about an idea that I had for a character who was an assassin who only killed people that wanted to die. And I had this phrase in my head, a one-man euthanasia clinic. And so I was telling Nick that, and he said, oh, that's funny, because I was thinking about somebody who was trying to commit suicide but couldn't do it, could never manage it. And we sort of realised that we could put those two ideas together to create actually quite a coherent story, looking at two people who are without a purpose in their life and the things that give their life purpose, I think.
So this is your first feature film, and you managed to get an incredible cast.
Yes.
Tom Wilkinson, as you mentioned. How did you get those people on board?
Yeah, so Tom is really as simple as we sent the script to his agent, and he read the script and he liked it, and he said yes. I remember the phone call that I got when I was told that Tom had accepted the role, and I was absolutely thrilled. I mean, he's terrific in the movie. He's just absolutely perfect for this film. He is perfect because the character has two lives. He has his professional life, where you've got to believe that he's this cold-hearted killer, but he's also got this very warm, tender, personal life at home with his wife. And Tom can really do those two things extremely well.
You mentioned yesterday that a story about Tom not wanting to work.
Yes.
So
yes.
What it's about?
Yes. So the thing with Tom Wilkinson is that he'll tell you he doesn't really like working. He'd rather be at home, and so he sort of almost is annoyed with you, and he was annoyed with me that I had sent him this script that he said that he couldn't turn down, but then he would constantly be complaining to me about that while we were on the film. Oh, you know, if you hadn't sent me this script, I would be at home now watching television, and now I'm here. And so he kind of, it was funny, he'd be sort of grumpy with me, but grumpy with me in a very positive way about how it was actually very, it was very kind about the script, really.
let's talk about the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the last time I heard Tiffany's. I think we're alone in a film.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the soundtrack.
Yeah, so there are certain moments in the film where I was very specific about the choice of music, and especially those placed older tracks. So we've got Yaz, The Only Way Is Up, and that plays basically as over one of the failed suicide attempts, and then the Tiffany track also is playing in the flat next door to William, or actually underneath William and Aneurin's character, as he is trying to gas himself in his oven. So the juxtaposition of that kind of just made me laugh. Actually, to be honest, that actually came out from an experience that I had at home. My wife is very into 80s pop music, and I was trying to write this very dark scene, and my wife was playing 80s pop music in the next door room, and I thought that just the juxtaposition of those two things was funny, made me laugh.
So there's one last song from Elbow which you talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
What's the story behind it?
Yeah, so we were very lucky in that one of our composers is Guy Garvey, who's the lead singer of Elbow, the band Elbow, and Guy wrote the title track. He actually doesn't perform it. It's performed by a young British singer-songwriter called Isaac Gracie, who is going to be absolutely huge. He's really an extremely talented guy, and he and Guy co-wrote this song for the end of the film, which is perfect because we wanted to create this really actually like uplifting moment. The film starts in a very, very bleak, dark place, but actually the film is very, I mean, it's hopefully very humorous, but it's also very life-affirming, I think. So we wanted it to end in this great kind of triumphant song, and Guy and Isaac's song is perfect.
Absolutely, it is. Aneurin, Barnard, I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Aneurin. Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Okay, tricky. If you're not from there.
From Welsh. From Wales, yeah.
Who plays William? He insisted on doing all the stunts by himself.
Yes.
How did you make sure that nothing happened?
Well, it's really difficult. I mean, first of all, there's Aneurin's confidence. I mean, he had just come, before working with us, he had just come from Dunkirk. So he was very much in the mindset of doing my own stunts and everything being done practically. And you know, that's a very noble intention. It's not something that you really expect an actor to want to do, or you know, you expect them to do. But you know, it's fantastic for me as a director because it means you can put the camera in much more intimate places. You know, there's a stunt where, you know, he's hit by a car, and you know, I was able to put the camera really, you really see his face. I don't have to hide it with a stunt double because Aneurin was willing to do that. Of course, you know, when you are putting your actor in dangerous situations, you do have to test the thing. So we didn't let him test the stunts. So he had a stunt double, but the stunt double only ever tested the stunts. And then when the stunt team and the stunt coordinator was happy that they were safe, then we could get Aneurin to come and do them. We have a big stunt which actually opens the film, and that stunt it was kind of really quite dangerous. We scheduled that on the very last day of filming, just in case.
Yesterday you said that you would like to steal from your favorite directors.
Yes.
And I was almost instantly thinking about the scene where you discuss the roles of Michael J. Fox.
Right.
And I was reminded of Kill Bill.
Right.
The conversation at the end of Kill Bill. Was it a coincidence, or?
So I mean, that is coincidental, but I think that, you know, these references infuse in in your mind, and sometimes you're maybe not even conscious that you're doing it, but you know what you like and you are trying to emulate what you like. I mean, I think a lot of filmmakers will say that you're standing on the shoulders of the people that have gone before you, and I am a real magpie. I'm a real cineast and film lover, and I watch an awful lot of films, and I see things done well, and I think, I'd love to do that. Like I said, I made the film for an audience. I made a film which I'm confident to stand in front of people and say, I think you will love this. I mean, this is the kind of film that I love to watch. That's why I've made it. So those things that, yes, absolutely, I love Tarantino. I love those kind of writer-directors, Tarantino, Martin McDonagh, the Coen brothers, especially people who operate in that dark comedy space. And then I think that those kind of meta-cinematic references where you're talking about film in a film, I think people can get a kick out of that. They enjoy it.
And I actually like the way you steal, as you said, because you don't just copy, you just throw in a reference, and by the time you realize it, it's already gone.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's just fun for people that can see what it is. I mean, there are lots of references to different films. And also, just in the way, just in the way that you shoot things, you see how directors have shot something successfully in the past, and you think, yeah, you know what? It's interesting to put the camera here. It's interesting to, cover the scene in this way. It's interesting to try to. To use the actor doing this style of performance. I don't know. I'm always watching films and always learning from watching films.
I think especially with these kinds of films, I suppose it's hard to find a balance between the killing and the humor.
Yes.
You really excelled at it.
Oh, thank you.
How did you do that? How did you achieve that?
Yes. I think, a lot of that's driven by instinct. A lot of that's just me thinking, I think this is funny, and I have enough belief in my own sense of humour to think that other people will think it's funny. We only really kill people that the audience, I think, want to be killed. I think that there's a lovely moment in the film, and it was particularly, it really happened yesterday at the Emden premiere, is that there's a character that comes in halfway through the film, and I think you kind of are expecting as the audience this character to be a big character, and he comes in and he's very loud and he's very obnoxious. I mean, he is a horrible person, and I wrote him consciously as a horrible person, and then he's gone, and the audience just love that. They love, you set up this big character, he's really horrible, but then they are so delighted when he meets his comeuppance.
Absolutely. But tell me about that Twix gag in the middle, because I didn't get it in the first place. Right.
So I just find the word Twix quite funny. I don't know why. And Twix, do you have Twixes here? Yeah, you have a Twix, right? And I thought it was, so the scene with this bit of dialogue is where William, the suicidal character played by Aneurin, is trying to explain, I guess, why he feels this deep discontentment, this deep depression, really, and what his worries are for the world. And he's talking to someone who doesn't really understand that at all. And the other character says, well, you need to find something that you can latch onto. He says it's the speck of gold in a sea of effluence. And he says, you can have the gun in your mouth and you think, God, I've never eaten a Twix. And it was just a sort of a funny way of taking a very, very serious moment and for someone to completely not understand what that moment is and think that it's as simple as having a bar of chocolate can make your life better. And then and then I used the Twix, I guess, as a structural motif. It reoccurred, which always makes me. I find that stuff satisfying. I love it when people do that, when something gets seeded early on and then pays off later.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. You tested the film in the countryside of Great Britain, as you said yesterday. Are the people over there in the UK laughing at different parts of the film than the German audience yesterday?
Yes, I think that they do. I found that actually the German audience seemed a lot more comfortable laughing at some of the, almost like in a comedy you need to be told, you need to be almost like given permission to laugh. You need to be reassured that, oh, this is meant to be funny, I'm supposed to be laughing at this. The English audience takes a bit more of a while to understand that. So we have this first scene, which is, like I said, you discover William in a very dark place. But the scene is meant to be funny, and it has got funny dialogue in it, I think. The English audience are not sure whether they're allowed to laugh, whereas the German audience were very confident to laugh at that stuff from the beginning, which was great. And then there are some nuanced things. I mean, it's a very, very British film. There are certain things which an English audience thinks are hilarious because it's very specific cultural references, which a German audience are not maybe getting quite the same things from. But it's lovely to see it working in an international setting. It's the first time we'd shown it. Emden was the world premiere. It's the first time we've shown it to an international audience, and it was lovely to see it working.
You also mentioned yesterday that you have a problem with traffic wardens. Is that why you killed one?
Yes. Yes. So that's a bit of wish fulfillment on my part. There's a scene in the film where a traffic warden accidentally is shot. I don't know what it is. I'm a very calm, rational, nice, I hope, person. But somehow traffic wardens just absolutely make me so furious. And I don't know why. I think it's the bureaucracy of it. It's the small bureaucracy of it. It just so frustrates me. And so in the film I took great delight in writing a scene in which I shot a traffic warden, or where the character shot a traffic warden.
The dialogue is really on point. You just throw out sentences like, killing people gives me a reason to live.
Yeah.
How long did it take to write the script and find all those small sentences?
Oh, I'm so pleased because those are the sorts of things that really make me happy. I love that sort of thing, and some of them you come up with straight away. So actually, that phrase, "killing people gives me a reason to live," was again one of those phrases that I really had in my mind from early on for Leslie, the Tom Wilkinson character. The same thing, that idea of a one-man euthanasia clinic. That was a phrase I thought really defined the character. And so there are those things which are there, and then some you have to work harder for. But I love that kind of thing. I love those kind of clever lines, and listen, some of them do take time. The script, I would write the script quite quickly and then would spend quite a long time between rewrites. So I would say that the script was fairly, as you see it in the film, after about 18 months, I would say. But that was sort of like a short period, then leave it for a bit whilst we would get some feedback, and then go in and do another draft and leave it again. So, yeah.
And how long was it from the first idea to the final film?
We are now probably 5 years into that, like maybe even a bit longer. It's an interesting thing. Film has this odd life, odd timescale, where you shoot the film for an extremely short amount of time. The amount of time you spend on set is so small compared to all the else that goes into it. So we shot the film in 5 weeks, and but so standing on the near side of that process, you've been working on this film for 4 years and you haven't even shot it yet. And then suddenly 5 weeks later, you've now been working on the film, or even, then taking it through to the end of post-production, the end of the edit. You're now 4.5 years into that process, but you've made the film, you've shot the film. So suddenly that feels like 4.5 years very well spent, whereas just 6 months previously it felt like 4 years of just so much hard work and so frustrating. Yeah.
Can only imagine that. Where did you shoot?
We shot in London.
Yeah.
We shot around London, which was there was a lot of great value to be got out of shooting in London, particularly for our bigger set pieces. Like, so we start the film on one of the bridges crossing the Thames, Chelsea Bridge, and it's a really great opening. It's an opening much bigger than a film I think of this size would normally, seek to try to do. But I wanted the film to be ambitious, and then the advantage of shooting in London is that a lot of the crew live there and the cast. I mean, Tom lives in London, Aneurin lives in London, Freya lives in London. So actually it's really nice for the cast and the crew because they're going home to their own homes at night. And it can make a difference. It can make the difference between, an actor saying yes to something or saying no to something.
Yeah, I think so. What was the biggest challenge in doing the film?
Well, through the whole production, it was, I think it was setting the film up was extremely challenging. I think that when you say to somebody, I'm going to make a comedy about us, where the main character is suicidal, I think people are nervous, and I understand that. I totally understand that. It took us a long time to reassure people that this was going to be okay, and I knew what I was doing, and that that there was a world in which you were able to represent the subject matter of suicide in a responsible way, but still be funny with it and make people laugh. But yeah, setting up the film was extremely tough. And we had tough days on the shoot, don't get me wrong. We had one horrendous day where it really was, it was so windy. And we were shooting an exterior scene, and just like things were going everywhere. It was extraordinarily high winds, and I know that a lot of the kind of the soap operas and this sort of thing, stuff that normally would shoot every single day of the year, they all shut down that day because shooting was so difficult, but we had to do it because we were on this very tight schedule. Yeah.
So what about your future? Is there anything you can already talk about?
Well, there's a couple of projects that I am working on. There's actually a project that is very, very dear to me. I thought it was going to be my first film, and it got quite far down the line, and then it didn't happen, and that's when I went and then did Dead in a Week. So there's a script for that film. And actually, it's set in Germany. It's set in Berlin, and I really, really want to make this film. It's a fictionalization, but imagining the life of the man who is the German voice of Tom Cruise. And the film is called Ich bin Tom Cruise. And it's a kind of a midlife crisis character comedy, and it's fun. It's a fun project. So I'm just sort of working out whether that is something that is possible, because it's complicated.
So. But sounds interesting.
It's a fun idea. It's a fun idea, and it would be fun, I think, to come and to shoot something in Berlin. Other than that, and then so that's the thing that is most far developed. Then there are a couple of other ideas that we're working into treatments and gonna start writing. Yeah.
So I think Get in a Week or Your Money Back comes out in Germany in autumn.
Yes.
But so far the German distributor is only releasing it on DVD.
Yes.
And I think that it's such a shame, especially when you've witnessed the audience yesterday.
Yes.
It's a film that has to have a theatrical release.
Oh, thank you.
So hopefully
look,
they will change
crossed.
their mind.
Yeah, and look, and I think that, like you say, seeing the audience respond to it yesterday at Emden, it was so great. It was so gratifying, and to see the film working in that environment was just great. And the feedback that we've had from people who were there in the cinema has just been terrific. So, fingers crossed.
Yeah. So that's a good point to start the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Such a
taking
pleasure.
the time.
Thank you.
And I'll see you around in Edinburgh.
Yes, lovely. Can't wait. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.